What would you think if I told you that the woman he can't stop thinking about never raised her voice, never begged, never pleaded for love? She simply disappeared into her own silence, and somehow it was louder than anything she'd ever said. He doesn't understand it at first. Her absence doesn't slam like a door. It lingers like a scent he can't place, a dream he almost remembers. She didn't leave with fireworks. She left like smoke, slowly, completely without permission. And that's what unsettles him. That's what keeps him circling back in thought, in memory, in what-ifs that arrive too late. Carl Jung would say she activated something in his unconscious, not because of her presence, but because of her containment. She became a projection he could not control. The anima, the internal feminine, unbound and unbothered by whether she was understood. Her energy whispered into the deepest parts of his psyche, the parts he'd buried beneath performance, conquest, and the illusion of being needed. She didn't play the role. She didn't become his emotional caretaker. She didn't dim herself to be desired. She didn't audition for love. She simply was, fully, authentically. And that's the danger. A woman who is at peace with herself is a mirror he can't manipulate. It wasn't that she lacked emotion. It was that she didn't use it as currency. She didn't bargain her worth for closeness. She didn't spill her soul to get a reaction. And most painfully for him, she didn't ask for clarity. She created it, within herself, without involving him. And now, he thinks of her, not because she pushed, not because she clung, but because she vanished without needing to explain why. This is what modern men rarely prepare for, the woman who walks away with her dignity intact, who gives no drama, no chase, no opening for games, the woman who, through silence alone, teaches him the depth of his own emotional chaos. He scrolls, he wonders, he replays the last moments and can't point to the exact time she left, because her leaving was not an event, it was a process. One that began the moment she felt unseen, one that climaxed not with confrontation, but with a calm, grounded withdrawal of energy. And in that absence, he unravels, because it wasn't what she said that stuck with him, it was what she never needed to say. It was the look in her eyes when she realized she deserved more. It was the way she didn't try to change him. It was the grace in her silence, not a wall, but a door she chose to walk through alone. That kind of woman, the one who doesn't announce her worth but embodies it, she becomes unforgettable. And she didn't need a word to do it. He sees her everywhere now, not literally, but energetically, in the spaces where he once felt in control, in the pauses that used to be filled with her warmth, in the soft attention of other women who smile too quickly, say too much, and remind him only of what she didn't do, because her silence wasn't cold, it was sacred. And now he understands the difference. Carl Jung said that what we do not make conscious will return to us as fate. And that's what she has become. The fate he never consciously chose, now returning in echoes. She wasn't loud in his life. She was consistent. She wasn't dramatic. She was present. And now that presence is gone, and no amount of noise can replace it. This is the secret about women who do the inner work. They don't fight for space in the lives of people who treat them like options. They don't protest their own fading in someone else's eyes. They simply observe, feel, and retract, not as punishment, as protection. She never told him what he was losing. She never needed to. She let his actions narrate the story. She let the energy between them speak louder than words. And in that, he told on himself, not in anger, but in absence. Because a woman like her doesn't need to explain why she's leaving. Her wholeness is the explanation. Her peace is the closure. And the regret he feels now isn't because she was too much. It's because she was everything he wasn't ready to receive. And here is where it hurts most. He thought he had time. Time to pull back, then return. Time to test, to provoke, to disappear, and assume she'd always be there, orbiting his uncertainty. But women who are truly embodied don't orbit, they evolve. And when they leave, they don't come back the same. Sometimes they don't come back at all. Now he's left with questions. Did she ever love him? How could she leave so quietly? Why is it her silence that echoes when so many voices fade? But these are questions he must sit with, alone, without response. Because the truth is, she did love him. She loved him so clearly that she never needed to prove it. But she loved herself more. And that's what he never understood. Until now. Because men don't regret the woman who made them feel safe. They regret the one who made them aware, the one whose silence exposed their emptiness, the one who never raised her voice, but somehow left him hearing her everywhere. And in every woman after her, he searches for her stillness, her grace, her detachment. But he never finds it, because that energy doesn't follow demand, it follows discernment. And now, for the first time, he knows what it means to feel the weight of a woman who didn't chase, not because she didn't care, but because she finally realized he never did. He remembers the last time he saw her, not because she made it unforgettable, but because she didn't. There was no performance, no final plea for attention, just her usual calm, a silence that held weight, like a closing door with no sound. She didn't need to explain herself, her absence explained everything. And now he's haunted by what didn't happen, the words she never said, the scenes he imagined would play out if he pushed her far enough. The outburst he expected that never came. Instead, she gave him stillness. And in that stillness, he discovered a truth more devastating than anger. She had already let go. Carl Jung wrote that our greatest suffering comes not from events, but from the meaning we assign them. And now, as he replays their last moments, he attaches meaning to every gesture, every glance, every breath she took before turning away. Because there's something deeply unnerving about a woman who doesn't try to convince you. She doesn't yell, she doesn't collapse, she doesn't prove, she just sees. She sees your patterns, your games, your half-hearted love, and she steps back, not in fear but in finality. That kind of clarity is unbearable for a man who thrives on confusion. He used to believe he held the power, that by keeping her uncertain, he kept her close. But what he failed to realize is that uncertainty only controls the insecure, and she had already passed through her fire. Her identity no longer hinged on his affection. She had stopped asking, "Am I enough?" and started asking, "Is this aligned?" It wasn't, so she left, wordlessly, cleanly, completely. And now everything reminds him of her, not in the way nostalgia works, but in the way absence stings. A coffee cup where hers used to sit, a laugh that doesn't quite match the memory, the way no one else seems to hold space like she did, without demand, without ego, without pretending to be less just, to be wanted more. She was the quietest woman he ever loved. And now, in her silence, she is the loudest. He wonders if she'll ever reach out, if she still thinks of him. But the truth he refuses to say out loud is this: if she wanted to, she would have. She's not the type to leave doors half open. She's not waiting for him to wake up. She already did. And when she woke up, she chose herself. That is what he can't stop thinking about. Not her beauty, not her body, not even her kindness, but her certainty. Her ability to walk away without a single word and leave behind a silence so heavy it echoes louder than love. He'll never admit it out loud, but deep in the recesses of his mind he compares every woman to her, not because she was perfect, but because she was present, fully, radiantly, unapologetically. She didn't fill space with noise, she filled it with meaning. And now, in her absence, he's left with women who talk too much but say too little. Women who laugh without depth, who follow his lead without question, who never challenge the part of him he keeps buried. She did. She was the interruption, the pause between patterns, the soul-deep stare that asked, "Is this really who you want to be?" He didn't know how to answer. He didn't know how to meet a woman who didn't need him but who saw him anyway, saw the man underneath the bravado, the boy underneath the armor. She never tried to fix him. She simply witnessed him, and that scared him more than any argument ever could. Carl Jung taught that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our lives and we will call it fate. And for him, she was fate disguised as interruption, the sacred feminine demanding his evolution. But instead of rising, he resisted. And by the time he realized what she was reflecting, she was gone. No drama, no goodbye, just space. And now that space is a shrine, a sacred wound, a soft ache that flares up every time he sees a woman almost like her, one who says the right things but doesn't carry the same energy, one who responds too quickly, gives too freely, stays too long in places that drain her. She didn't. That's what sets her apart. She knew when her soul was being starved. She knew when her presence was being consumed but not honored. And instead of asking him to see her, she turned inward. She reconnected with the place inside her that said, "You are not here to be understood. You are here to be aligned." And now she is aligned, not bitter, not closed, not chasing, just silent and sovereign. And in that sovereignty, she becomes mythic, the one that got away, not because he couldn't have her, but because he couldn't meet her, not in presence, not in truth, not in the place beyond ego where love requires accountability. So now he obsesses in the quiet. He replays her every word, trying to decode what she meant. But what he fails to realize is that her power was never in what she said. It was in what she didn't need to say. It was in the way she refused to shrink, even when he wasn't ready to expand. And that refusal is what haunts him. He'll never see her again the way he once did, because the woman who once softened for him, the one who made space, who gave grace, who waited in silence for him to rise, no longer exists. She outgrew the part of herself that believed love had to be earned through suffering. She shed the skin of the girl who explained, the lover who lingered, the empath who absorbed his confusion. Now she is something else entirely. She is the woman he can no longer reach, not because she's hiding, but because she's risen. He taught her, not through wisdom, but through absence, how to trust her own knowing. He taught her that silence speaks, that energy never lies, and that real love does not require translation. Carl Jung said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." And she awakened. She no longer needs his closure. She became her own. She no longer wonders if he misses her. She knows he does, because she can feel it. Not in words, not in actions, but in the deep stillness of the air between them. The same stillness she once sat in while he wavered. The same stillness she now bathes in, free of the weight of being misunderstood. She lives her life in that quiet power now, unbothered, undistracted, untouched by the noise of men who come with promises but no presence. She walks through the world with a softness wrapped in steel, not guarded, just clear. Because a woman like her doesn't build walls. She builds standards, and those standards are not designed to attract the masses. They are thresholds for the worthy. So no, she doesn't speak of him. She doesn't stalk his life from afar. She doesn't post cryptic quotes hoping he'll read between the lines. Her silence remains, not to punish, but to protect. Because she knows now the man who was shaken by her stillness was never ready to meet her in her storm, and still he thinks of her. In the early hours before sunrise, in the silence after a meaningless conversation, in the arms of someone who doesn't challenge his ego or awaken his soul, he thinks of the way she loved without losing herself, the way she let go without turning cold. He thinks of the woman who didn't say a word, and yet became the loudest echo in his life, and he'll carry that echo, not as a wound, but as a reminder of what he could have been had he been ready, of what he lost, not because she left, but because she finally chose herself. And that is the moment a man never forgets. When the woman who once gave him everything, without force, without chase, without words, walks away in silence and never looks back. The women who truly know their value don't speak to be heard. They become the silence that's never forgotten.